having no body. Incorporeal property of two kinds, that is jura in reliania or encumbrances, whether over material or immaterial things. Now, the key words here: rooted to earth, embedded to earth, fastened to earth, attached to earth, and fixtures are some of the immovable properties. The case laws being Inox Air Products Limited versus Rathi Ispat Limited. Things attached to earth, fastened to earth, are immovable property. Commissioner of Central Excise Ahmedabad was a solid and correct engine works. Definition again discussed. Movable property is one which can be transferred from one place to another place with human efforts. What is a immovable property again? Indian law has adopted the division of property into movable and immovable, and not the technical division into real and personal property recognized by the English law. In Futeh Singh versus Kulai Ranji, their lordships of the Privy Council observed the term immovable property comprehends certainly all that would be real property according to English law and possibly more. Thus, a leasehold land would be personally property in England but would be immovable property in this country. In India, the term is defined in TP Act, General Clauses Act and Registration Act. Transfer of property. The definition of immovable property is in two parts. Part 1 defines the immovable property and part 2 in definition attached to earth. Both have to be read together for knowing the immovable property. The definition of immovable property includes three things, namely land, benefits arise out of land, and things attached to the earth. Both it excludes three things, namely standing timber, growing crops, and grass. The definition of expression immovable property in this act is a negative definition and is neither comprehensive nor exhaustive. It merely excludes standing timber, growing crops, and grass. This includes probably the residue. What is not specifically declared to the movable property will normally be within the term immovable property. If such under, it may be another law. The judicial analysis of the issue was made in Sukre Kurdeppa versus, wherein Mr. Justice Nagi Reddy versus Sukre Kundreppa versus Nagi Reddy, wherein Mr. Justice Holloway said, movability may be defined to be a capacity in a thing of suffering alteration in the relation of place. Immovability is incapacity for such alteration. If, however, thing cannot change its place without injury to the quality, it is immovable. Immovable property in General Act 1897, Section 3, Subsection 25 of the General Clauses Act 1897, which applies to this Act, defines immovable property as including land, benefit arising out of land, and things attached to this earth. The chapters that would cover under Transfer and Property Act is chapter number 1, dealing with the preliminary sections, that is 1 to 4, transfer of property by act of parties and general principles, section 5 to 53A, sales of immovable property 54 to 57 sections, then mortgage of immovable property and charges, that is section 58 to 104, leases of immovable property, section 105 to 117, and exchanges are grouped under section 118 to 121. Then chapter 7, gifts, 122 to 129, and the remaining chapters, transfer of actionable claims, 130 to 197. These are all the important 132, 180 to 121 is exchanges. And now we will come to the main important definition regarding the immovable property. I was just talking about the immovable property as per General Act 1897, which applies to this act, defines immovable property as including land, benefit arising out of land, and things attached to the earth, which means rooted in the earth, are embedded in the earth, are permanently fastened to anything so embedded for its permanent beneficial enjoyments. This definition has reference only to the physical object and does not furnish an exhaustive test of what is and what is not immovable property. In General Classes Act, the definition of immovable property is same of attached to earth. In Transfer of Property Act, there are no exceptions. Shivdayal versus Putilal, All India Reporter 1933, page number 50, clear definition of this rooted to earth, embedded for its permanent beneficial enjoyments is given. In General Clauses Act, as there are Transfer of Property Act, standing timber, growing crops and grass are exempted. They are not immovable property. Indian Registration Act 1908, Section 2/6. Immovable property includes lands, buildings, hereditary allowances, right to ways, lights, ferries, fisheries, or any other benefit to arise out of land. And things attached to earth are permanently fastened to earth, anything which is attached to the earth but not standing timber, growing crops, or nor grass. The definition as given in the Registration Act amalgamates the concept as given in the Transfer of Property Act and General Clauses Act. Despite it, this definition too cannot be said to be exhaustive, it is still enumerative. Three major definitions under Section 3 are movable and immovable property, then attestation and notice. These are the preliminary chapter number 1. The complete meaning of immovable property read all three acts together. The term immovable property includes three things which are described as under. Land is immovable property. This does not include the upper surface of the earth but is extensive enough to cover things below it. For example, minerals and sea, ocean and properties below in their bottom. These are all immovable property. Any interest in these or in respect of these or any other property in it are all immovable property. Besides, well, tube well, rivers, ponds, tanks, stream, canal, dug on surface, whether natural or artificial, and all interest in these would fall in enumeration of the term land. As such, all are immovable property. Land except in section 109 and 143 and 144 and in chapter 7, land has been defined by UP Zamindari Act and 1951 deals land held or occupied for the purposes connected to agriculture, horticulture or animal husbandry, which includes pisciculture and poultry farming. The expression land is used in two senses, general sense and particular sense. In general sense, it means grounds or soil, whether occupied by building or covered with water, are used for growing crops or left vacant. The Transfer of Property Act and other enactments used the word land in this sense. In particular sense, land means land used for the purposes connected with agriculture, horticulture and animal husbandry, which includes pisciculture and poultry farming. Unless a declaration is obtained under section 143 of the Act, the land shall be continue to be governed by the provisions of UP Zamin